All right, I'll tell this like I lived it, because I did. And I'll talk to you the way I'd talk across a diner booth, coffee between us, no fancy speeches, just the truth of what happened and why I made the choices I made. I didn't set out to save anybody. I was just trying to get through my Tuesday. My company had a supplier issue, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing, and I ducked into this old-school diner off Route 41 because the meatloaf there tastes like my mother's used to. The place was busy, waitresses moving fast, the bell over the door ringing, classic rock low on the radio. I slid into a booth and opened my notebook because I still jot things down by hand. That's when a kid, 16 maybe, stopped by my table and tapped the leather seat. "Sir," he said, nervous but steady, "you dropped this outside." He was holding my wallet. I hadn't even noticed it was gone. I checked. All the cards, the little photo of my wife from '95, the receipts jammed in there. Everything there, cash untouched. I looked at the kid and he just nodded like he expected nothing. "What's your name?" I asked. "Luis," he said. "We're in that booth." He pointed toward the back. Family of 5, mom, dad, 2 younger kids, and him. The mom was helping the little girl spell something on a napkin. The dad had the look I've seen in 1,000 men trying to stretch a dollar, calculating what they can afford, doing little mental math. I gave the kid a reward, just a 50, nothing crazy. He seemed embarrassed to take it. That surprised me in a good way. "Do something nice for your mom," I said. He smiled, and that was that. Except it wasn't, because the waitress, a lifer there, knows everyone's business, leaned over after they ordered. "That family's newer in town," she said, low voice. "The dad fixed our washing machine for half of what Sears wanted." "Good people. Where from?" I asked, more out of habit than anything. She shrugged. "Not from here." "Mind their business, say please and thank you. Tip what they can. The boy's a saint. He mows my yard on weekends." I watched them a minute, not in a creepy way, just curious. The mom corrected the little one's spelling, but she did it with patience, no sighing, no rolling eyes. The dad, he kept glancing at the door like he was waiting on someone. I thought about my own dad doing that when money was tight, checking the door like opportunity might blow in if you were ready. I ate, paid, and on my way out, I stopped by their booth. "Thank you for the wallet," I said again to the boy. "My mom says we don't keep what isn't ours," he said. His mom smiled, polite. His dad stood and shook my hand. Firm handshake, calloused, the kind you don't fake. We chatted. Basic stuff. He said his name was Mateo. He did appliance repair. He could fix anything, and he meant it. His English was careful but good. He mentioned a church nearby and that they'd moved into the neighborhood a year ago. No drama, no pitch. Just a family trying to get through their Tuesday, too. 2 weeks later, I saw them again. Not at the diner this time, but in a less comfortable place. The parking lot behind my office when I was pulling out. The mom, Sophia, was sitting on the curb with the 2 younger kids. The boy wasn't there. Mateo held an official-looking envelope that had Department of Homeland Security in the corner. His hand shook just enough to notice. He recognized me, though I doubt he expected me to stop. I did. "Everything all right?" I asked, even though it was clearly not. Mateo looked at me like a man holding back a flood. We got this. I do not know what to do." He handed me the letter. It was a notice to appear. Deportation proceedings. A court date 3 weeks out. They were being told to show up and make their case or be removed. I won't pretend I'm an expert on immigration law. I'm not. I'm a business guy who signs too many checks and knows how to tell when a person's lying. These people weren't lying. They were scared. I asked how it happened. The story was simple. Years back, they came on a visitor visa to help an aunt who had cancer. The aunt died. Life moved on. They overstayed. No criminal record, no trouble. They kept their heads down, paid what taxes they could with an ITIN number. Yes, I know some of you don't think that's possible, but it is. And went to church every Sunday. Mateo fixed appliances for cash and then for checks when he could. Sophia cleaned houses. The oldest kid, Luis, worked weekends, and he kept his grades up. But an old traffic stop led to a database match, and now here they were. I'm not naive. People break rules and then cry when the consequences arrive. I believe in rules. I built my life on them, but I also believe in context and character, and I'm a sucker for people who teach their kids right, because that's how communities survive. I told Mateo to meet me at a coffee shop the next morning. I told him to bring every document they had, anything that showed they were responsible people, rent receipts, church letters, school reports, tax filings, everything. They showed up with a plastic bin, organized, dates labeled, not the kind of folks trying to run, the kind trying to belong. So here's what I did. I called a lawyer. Not some TV ad lawyer with catchphrases, but a woman I trust who handled a case for a friend's company. She doesn't do charity. She does things by the book. I paid for the consultation out of my pocket, and I told her one thing. If this is a no-go, say it. Don't sugarcoat, she didn't. She explained the options, the risks, the timelines. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was hard, and it would take patience. Maybe years. She talked about prosecutorial discretion, about how sometimes the government will set cases aside when a family's clean, rooted, contributing, and there's hardship to U.S. citizen kids. She said we could file for deferred action, ask for an order of supervision, maybe get work permits while the case sat in the slow cooker of bureaucracy. She also said we'd need impeccable conduct, letters from the community, proof of taxes paid, kids' records, the whole 9 yards. Zero guarantees. I looked at Mateo and Sophia. I'm not promising an outcome, I said. I'm promising to stand next to you while you do this the right way. Sophia cried, quiet, controlled, a hand to her mouth like she didn't want to embarrass herself. Mateo squeezed my hand so hard my knuckles cracked. The lawyer got to work. Now, you might be wondering why I got involved at all. I could say it's because my great-grandfather came over not speaking English, because he swept floors in a factory until his hands bled, because he named my father Michael after his foreman who took a chance on him. All that's true. But the simpler reason is that a kid gave me my wallet back without touching a dollar bill. That told me everything I needed to know about the values in that house, and values matter to me more than paperwork. Paperwork can be fixed. Values are raised. We pulled together letters. The pastor wrote one. The principal wrote one about Luis and his perfect attendance, his JV soccer captaincy, the way he tutored younger kids in math after school. The waitress from the diner wrote one, said, "They tip when they can't afford to." The neighbor wrote one about Mateo clearing her driveway during the snowstorm without being asked. I wrote one too, and I didn't write flowery nonsense. I said, "This family shows up. They pay what they owe. They respect this place." There were critics. There always are. My CFO told me to be careful. This wasn't my fight. A guy at the gym rolled his eyes and said we're rewarding lawbreakers. My brother warned me it could get political and make for bad press. And I get those arguments, I do. But I've also noticed something over the years. The people who talk the loudest about law and order sometimes forget the order part includes fairness and proportionality. We have courts for a reason. We weigh things. We don't swing hammers blindly and call it justice. Day of the first hearing, I put on a simple navy suit, nothing flashy. I sat behind them in the courtroom. Government counsel did his job. He wasn't cruel. Our lawyer did her job. She was precise. She asked for time to file motions, put together the full record, ask for administrative closure based on humanitarian grounds and community ties. The judge listened. The judge asked questions. The judge set dates. No miracles, just process. Back home, we did the unglamorous work. Mateo took an English class at night and asked me for help with idioms. I told him, when someone says spill the beans, it doesn't involve beans. He laughed so hard he cried. He also started keeping a log of every repair job with receipts, addresses, phone numbers for references. Sophia learned QuickBooks and started invoicing neatly. She asked to pay me back for the lawyer someday. I said, "May pay it forward when you can." That's the deal. Luis, the kid who found my wallet, asked if he could shadow our operations team on Saturdays. I said only if it didn't get in the way of school. He showed up with a notebook that first Saturday and asked better questions than half the college interns I've seen. I showed him how our routing software works, how we track deliveries, why being 5 minutes early saves 15 minutes later. He soaked it up. I hired Mateo officially when the permits came through. Full W-2, payroll taxes, benefits. He fixed our warehouse refrigerators like they were his kids. He comes in early. He leaves late. He texts me when he locks up. When there's a mess, he cleans it. He doesn't ask whose mess it is. That's the kind of teammate who keeps a company alive when the weather turns. Not everyone applauded. One longtime client called and said he'd take his business elsewhere if I was bringing politics into logistics. I told him, if hiring a legal worker with a work permit who shows up every day is politics, then I guess we disagree on definitions. He cooled off. People often do when you don't flinch. Here's something else that happened that nobody expects in stories like this. The family didn't become my charity project. They became my neighbors. We attended Luis's soccer final. He missed a penalty kick and cried like the season had been written on that ball. I told him what coaches told me when I fumbled. If you can cry today and show up tomorrow, you're already ahead of half the world. He did. He graduated in the top 10 of his class while working evenings. The principal said a few words, and I stood at the back with Mateo, both of us pretending we had dust in our eyes. We also did the boring, responsible stuff, filed taxes quarterly, saved receipts, set money aside for legal fees, checked in with the lawyer on every letter from the government. No hiding, no cutting corners. The lawyer drilled it into us. You want grace from the system? Then treat the system with respect. There were setbacks. A hearing got bumped. A clerk misfiled something. We had to resend documents. Not everything is a clean arc with a triumphant soundtrack. But do you know what carried us through? Not my bank account. Not a clever loophole. It was consistency. It was a family that didn't panic when others would. It was a government attorney who honestly evaluated the file and didn't try to win just to win. It was a judge who took the time to ask Luis about his plans and listened when he said engineering. It was a pastor who offered childcare during appointments. It was a waitress who slipped Sophia a slice of pie when she looked like she needed it. Years later, yes, years, because this stuff moves at the speed of file cabinets, the case got administratively closed. Work permits renewed. No deportation order. Not a green card, not the finish line, but a firm ground to stand on. Enough to keep paying rent, to keep the kids in school, to keep building something that looks like a future and not just a set of temporary fixes. And because life has a way of tying bows in funny places, the little girl, Alma, won her school's essay contest with a piece about the sound of our front door key. She wrote about how turning it felt like turning a page. The principal invited me to the assembly and asked if I'd say a word. I said, the best parts of America still sound like a key turning. Let me level with you, especially if you're someone who rolls their eyes at stories like this. I'm not asking you to change your politics. Keep your skepticism. I carry mine everywhere. I audit my own books twice the way some of you double-check locks at night. I lock my doors, too. But I've lived long enough to tell the difference between a problem and a person, and I've learned this simple rule. If someone is working, learning, saying thank you, and raising kids to return a stranger's wallet with the cash still inside, then they're not the problem. They're the kind of raw material any decent community needs. I also know there are people who game systems. I've fired some. I've testified against one who stole. Leniency without standards becomes chaos, but strictness without judgment becomes cruelty. We need rules. We also need leaders at every level who can hold two ideas in their head: Protect the border and protect what's best about us once people are already here, woven into our neighborhoods, paying sales tax on milk and bread and school shoes, showing up for their kids. That's not soft. That's adult. I didn't broadcast what I did. My PR person suggested we post about it. It's good content, she said. We didn't. I told her, lives aren't content. I'm only telling it now because I keep hearing folks talk about those people like they're a traffic problem. They're not cones on the highway. They're families with hard choices, same as yours were, same as mine were. And yes, it changed me too. I started a scholarship at the high school for kids who work jobs while studying. That's a kind of grit you can't learn inside a classroom. Luis won the first one by accident of timing, but he earned it. He's at a state college now, engineering, commuting, and he still comes in on holiday breaks to shadow our logistics team. I told him, I'll write your recommendation when you apply for that first big boy job, but you better be better than half my staff by then. He grinned. He will be soon. I also learned to ask better questions when I meet new folks. Not, where are you from? But what are you building? The answers are always more interesting. Mateo is building a small business. Legit now with a business account and an accountant who gives him migraine headaches on purpose. Sophia built a cleaning route that makes more money because she learned to price her time, not just her hours. Alma is building a vocabulary that will knock your socks off by 16, and little Diego, who never stops moving, is building whatever's in front of him into a fort. If you need a neat ending, I don't have one. Immigration is messy because people are messy. The law drags behind life like a kid trying to keep up with taller legs. But here's the ending I can offer. A few months ago, we had our company picnic. Hot dogs, potato salad, lukewarm soda that tastes better outdoors. Nothing special. People brought their kids. Someone's uncle brought a guitar and played old Merle Haggard tunes. Mateo stood by the grill, flipping burgers, giving advice about charcoal like he wasn't the new guy anymore. Sophia set up a table for desserts and bossed everyone gently like she'd been doing it for years. Luis taught one of our forklift guys a card trick. At one point, I stepped back, took it in, and felt that quiet click inside that told me, this is what it looks like when folks fit. On the way out that evening, I found a wallet under a folding chair. I laughed. When I opened it, there was a driver's license, 2 credit cards, and some cash. I walked it over to the owner, a retiree who helps us out during inventory. He patted his shirt pocket and went white. I owe you one, he said. I said, pass it on, because that's how we keep this whole circus upright. Someone steadies your ladder, you steady somebody else's. Doesn't have to make the news, doesn't have to be loud, just has to be decent. If you're listening to this and you're not sure what to think, that's okay. Uncertainty is honest. I'll offer you one last picture. My dad used to say America is a porch, not a fortress. You sit, you talk, you tell folks where to wipe their feet, and you invite them to bring a dish next time. If they don't wipe their feet and bring nothing but trouble, you don't invite them back. If they show up, pitch in, and keep the rules you lay out, then sooner or later you stop asking where they came from because all you can see is where they're helping you go. That's all this was. A family showed up. They kept their heads down and their values up. The law gave them a lane after a lot of paperwork and patience. I lent a shoulder till they found their balance. And the best part? They didn't become my project. They became my people. So when someone asks me why a millionaire would get mixed up in an immigrant family's deportation case, I tell them the same thing I'm telling you now. Because a kid handed me my wallet with all the cash still inside, and because if a country can't make room for that kind of kid, then what exactly are we protecting? Years from now, when Alma turns the key to whatever house she buys with whatever job she earns, she'll hear the same click I heard at that picnic. And maybe she'll remember her mom's hands scrubbing countertops, her dad's hands inside a washing machine fixing a belt, her brother's hands catching a soccer ball and a break, and some old guy at a diner booth who chose to stand in their corner. Not because he's a hero, because he's a neighbor. That's the story. Not a sermon, not a policy paper. Just a Tuesday that turned into a promise, and a promise kept one appointment, one receipt, one long courthouse hallway at a time. And if you need a moral, it's this. When in doubt, bet on the folks who teach their kids to give a wallet back with the cash still inside. That bet pays off more often than you think.